Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. We are back today in a pre-Thanksgiving space to talk about all that. What I'm saying? Rosebud the Pimp used to say what all that is. Um, we're begging the question today. What were the colonists thankful? Is it really thanks for giving? Is it thanks for murdering? What is it? You know, America is a big uh, stage full of gaslighting. What is this Thanksgiving? What is this? It involved Pocahontas. Was Pocahontas her real name? No. Her name was Amanute. Y'all know what Pocahontas meant? Pocahontas was a pejorative. It meant you bad, you mischievous little girl. Like you little badass, hard-headed ass. You know who gave her that name? Her dad, Chief Powhatan. You know why he gave her that name? He gave her that name because she kept trying to help the colonists who he did not trust, who eventually got him killed, and who eventually got her killed in the worst possible way. But we'll talk about that a little later on. So, without further ado, what do y'all think? Were the colonists thankful? What do we think?
Knowing them, probably not. I can't see them doing anything good.
Simply put, I would have an experiment with my students where we would watch the Disney movie, Disney Pocahontas, which came out when I was a child. Um, and before we'd watch it, they would read a portion of my book and the real story of Pocahontas and get it real ingrained in their head, take an exam. And then we watch the movie and everybody would be fucking mad because the movie is it's in diametric opposition to the truth. It's the exact opposite of the story. It turns Pocahontas into a 30-year-old sex pot who's stalking a 19 or 18-year-old John Smith, right? She's a predator. She's some type of sexual predator who has a miniskirt on in the jungle. That's not the story.
Um,
The story of
You're
Pocahontas.
breaking up.
Go ahead, man.
You're
Oh,
breaking
interesting.
up. I never watched the
Go ahead.
movie because of obvious reasons, but continue. I hope you're not going to break up though. Are you
Oh,
driving?
probably not. Yeah, I'm driving, but I'll be home in a second. I'm in
Okay.
Atlanta. Yeah, I probably hit like a dead zone or something. But just if I break up again, I'll go on mute and you can talk until I get home. I'm about 4 minutes
I don't
away.
know anything
But
about Pocahontas.
I got a whole book on it, man. Well, anyway, and I wrote a large portion on her. So sit back and take some notes because I know a lot about this. So Pocahontas, also known as Amanute, was helping the colonists. Her and the it was a town called Werewacomo. I may be saying that wrong. Werewacomo is spelled Werecomo. It was later named Jamestown after King James. This shit gets deep, ladies and gentlemen. It is deeper than a motherfucker. We are living in a conspiracy. No shit. You damn right the CIA came up with the word conspiracy to keep us off the track because the conspiracy is in your face. What are you talking about? What I'm talking about is King James, the same fucker who commissioned the writing, and I get in trouble. He didn't write it. Okay, well, yeah, he didn't write it. He commissioned the writing of the Holy Bible, of the King James version of the Bible. You know, the same dude who wrote Demonology book. Well, he um, took over where Como his men under his charter, just like charter schools. They got a charter to take over where Como. Who gave them the authority to do that? I hadn't figured that out yet. But his men took over where Como and named it in his honor. They named it Jamestown. Jamestown still stands. Jamestown, Virginia. Why? Well, here goes another little interesting fact. Why is it called Virginia? Does anybody know?
No.
Crickets. Oh Lord, brace yourself. King James did not like women. In fact, And I'm not judging anybody's lifestyle. I'm just speaking of material fact. In fact, King James had a lover, and his mother told him, "You need to get married to keep the bloodline going." So she forced him to marry, and he married a woman who he never had sex with. And his wife, the queen, would brag on how she's a virgin and she's never been touched by man. She was so proud of it that he named this whole state after her virginity. So Virginia is named after King James's his the queen's virginity, her chastity, which is interesting if you think about it. Another interesting fact is King James, as rumor has it, his mother said something about his something that he didn't like about his favorite lover. That was Lord Buckingham. You know, like Buckingham Palace. Yeah, he named the palace after his lover. Yeah, that's his lover, Lord Buckingham. Look it up. Don't trust the shit I
That's a
say.
very suggestive name, Professor.
So yeah, his mother said something about Lord Buckingham, and King James had his mother killed. Right? So we have scores of foundational Black American baby boomers going to church, and the rest of us going to church and reading out of a Bible um, commissioned by a murderer who had his mother killed because she didn't agree with his lifestyle. And we wonder why we have so many problems in our community. Well, back to the point at hand. Pocahontas was helping the colonists when they got to Waracomo. Now, as most of you learned in elementary school, the colonists were dying off. That's true because the temperatures in Jamestown and Virginia are odd. It's very humid and it.
I can't hear you. Hello.
There are several writers who insinuated things like they were odd, bad vibes and such. But I would have to think it would be an event to make the chief say, you know what, fuck them. I'm not gonna help them. Leave them alone. But I haven't been. I haven't yet identified.
I can't hear you. Hello?
Um, One day, um, some of King James's men found out she was royalty, and they kidnapped her. So the portion of my uh, title says, "Does Pocahontas have Stockholm?" Yes, she does. They want to talk for me. I'm gonna go.
Hey y'all, I'm back. I think I may have made some people in high places angry in Tariq's space yesterday. That none of that has what just happened a moment ago never happened before. I had full bars of service, and people were texting me telling me couldn't hear me, and like none of that happened. All of it, and here goes the thing: I left the app and came right back in good time and tried to join my own page. And it was like, join, you got 45 seconds to join. And I was like, haha, got it. And I hit join and it said, sorry, space has ended.
What? God, that was fast. You didn't even get the seconds because, yeah, they messed with it.
hmm I think I pissed somebody off. Oh,
So we shouldn't have cussed that girl out last night.
no, I think she was an operative, like bona fide. I was,
We didn't cuss her out. We got cussed out and we were like stunned. She had one of those machine gun mouths that I noticed that the Caribbean women have. It's like really fast
yeah,
and you don't get to say anything.
yeah,
And see, they're used to talking to their savage men. They don't even know how to have regular conversations.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, just going off at the mouth real quick. And they men be taking it too. Shut up, woman. Yeah, we a different breed, man. I said be quiet over here. Anyway, ain't it good to be a foundational Black American? You see,
Yes. Because we don't have an Irish brogue that we try to pretend comes from Africa.
nah, man, we good in country. Or it's something about us, It's something. It's some similarity, you know. We're real. I think it's some realness going on. It's no
But you know who does have an English accent here?
who.
Certain Delmarva people that I don't want to mention.
Hmm.
Baltimoreish.
I hear the closest to a yeah. I agree with that. My grandmother's from DC. With my dad's from DC, and Baltimore is weird. They do sound kind of like certain words they say sound English, but who really sounds English to me? I really hear that English accent in Boston.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I went to Harvard for a little while, and it's not in Boston. It's in Cambridge, which is right outside of Boston. And when them folks was talking, I was like, it's almost get out of here, over here, yeah, over there. I was like, that sounds English to me. Yeah, maybe it's just my ear.
Hmm. No, it is because I was like, where are they getting this accent from? And then with the Jamaicans, and then I looked it up, and they have an Irish brogue, but they try to pretend like it's something else.
Hmm. Well, back to the business. We were talking about King James. Where did I leave off? I don't even know what y'all heard last.
Let me see. You were discussing um okay, Powhatan.
I think that might be the way
Then
to say it, Powhatan.
that's how my friend who's she has that last name in her family when we were doing her genealogy. That's how she says it. I
Powhatan.
don't know how to say it. Powhatan.
That's the first time I heard Powhatan, but I'm looking at the spelling in my book, and it does look like Powhatan. Powhatan. And I know I'm saying it wrong, Powhatan. I added a couple vowels, didn't
Because when we're researching, we can't hear how things sound. Like if you're in a class and the teacher's saying it 10 times, then you're going to know. But a lot of the work we do, we don't hear how things sound. And I have to like put on the pronunciation thing to see what it sounds like because I can't tell.
I? Right, right. So, Powhatan, the chief Powhatan, warned her to stop helping these people. And that's where she got the name Amanute. I mean Pocahontas, because she kept going against her will, going against his will, and it cost her everything. Actually, according to me, in my book, the work textbook workbook for the foundational Black American family, I say quote, or I said rather quote. Stockholm syndrome is a psychological response wherein a captive begins to identify closely with his or her captors, as well as their agenda and demands. Got it? That's from Britannica 2021. Pocahontas was a beautiful princess of the land and stolen and renamed Jamestown. We went over this. Um, okay, against her, Amanute made contact with the English colonizers and brought them food. In repayment for her kindness, the English adult men kidnapped Amanute when she was 15 or 16 years old. She was then held in captive by the Englishmen for over a year. Well, check this shit out. And this is coming from that scholarship's coming from Townsend. But she said she was held in captivity for a year. While in captivity, she was both physically and psychologically abused. The English repeatedly told Amanute that her religious beliefs were incorrect. Now, Tariq talked about that last night. He said, don't be ashamed of your religion. Don't be ashamed of your ancestor worship. Do not be ashamed of your power. I want to point out to my people, my foundational Black American family, that is a very powerful vector of attack. The Europeans take you out of your power. They do, and they did it with Amanute. They told her that her religious beliefs were garbage. She was going to hell, and they kept her for a fucking year in a reconditioning camp where they made her love Jesus. No offense to anybody here that goes to trial. No.
They had a reconditioning
Oh
camp?
yeah, see, you didn't know that, did you? Yes, ma'am.
Nope.
They put her in a camp where they taught. Well, let me say what this called. So the English repeatedly told Amanute that her religious beliefs were incorrect, and on many occasions they attempted to convert her to Christianity. After a year of captivity, Pocahontas was introduced to John Rolfe, a rich tobacco farmer. So who was a grown ass motherfucking man, damn near 40. Well, um, that was tactical. Word got to see the high British royalty needed claims to the land. How do you get claims to the land? How does a prince get claim to a? I mean, how do you get claim to land? You marry a princess, right?
Marrying somebody.
Not
Mm-hmm.
just somebody. You marry a royalty.
Mm-hmm.
Pocahontas was a princess. So, John Rolfe, who was a noble, was sent to marry her to get her pregnant, but she bucked at it at first. Like you said earlier, months ago, Wani, sex was not a big deal. But just taking her out of her cultural conditions was not cool. But they kept her in like a reconditioning camp to make her fall in love with Christianity. And I'm gonna share two pictures out of my book of the. I have a before and after of Pocahontas. Um, and it says volumes. But go ahead, Black Truth. What's on your mind, bro?
Salute to you, brother Professor Allen, Sister Wani, brother Twizzle, everyone here. I just wanted to add some context to King James. I know it's going to sound like I have a cape on for him, but I'm specifically talking about King James the Sixth. I don't know exactly which. Was that the one that was that the king that you were
King James
referencing?
Stewart of Scotland.
The
King
the
James.
sixth.
I don't know the number. I've
Okay.
never looked into that.
I
Yeah,
think
the
I
one who
know.
commissioned the Bible. First of all, he was likely a quote unquote black man at that time. Second of all, he fathered 9 children by one woman. So
That's
there was
not
a lot of.
we're not talking about the same person then. We're not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is another one. Hold
Because
on.
yeah, a lot of people like
That's
to,
way later.
yeah, when people talk about the person who commissioned the Bible, that was a very heterosexual black
that was the
man
steward.
who
That was the
commissioned
steward.
and made sure that different scholars were overseeing the creation and the translation of the Bible. But also, I
Mm.
wanted to add that during that time, there were contemporary scholars and enemies of King James at the time who were secretly plotting behind the scenes. And what they would do is they would create these rumors while he was still alive that he was a homosexual. So I don't know if it may not be the exact same
But
person,
no,
but they were.
this one is King James the first.
That
I
sounds right.
mean,
Oh, okay.
is the one who made the demonology book and his version of the Bible. He also started all of the witch hunt. He kind of made that demonology book, and it was like a handbook of how to identify witches, and it kind of made the witch hunts more legitimate. It's like the king wrote this, and now you can go out and identify a witch based on what's in this Bible or what's in this demonology book. Just interesting. But again, remember we were speaking about how religion, how these priests have to know who the demons are. So it goes hand in hand. If you're going to exorcise someone, you're going to be a priest, you have to know the names of the demons to be effective. And so that's why he was dabbling in both of those things.
Hmm. It may be the same king. I may be getting the numbers mixed up. Whoever it was who commissioned the
Oh no, it
thorough
also says
translation, this, or go
it
ahead.
says King James 1, who is also James 6 of Scotland. See, that's what it is. He's 6 of
Oh,
Scotland.
okay. Yeah, that's
So
who I
he's
thought.
got
So we
King.
are talking about the same person.
Yeah, he did write the demonology book.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, the demonology book is actually a book, like you said, that identifies people who are involved in witchcraft. He was heavily against witchcraft. He was heavily against homosexuality. He wrote about that not only in that book, but also in letters to his sons. He was also way beyond his time when it comes to drugs, as far as tobacco. He actually counseled and wrote against the use of tobacco. He
Oh,
said that there
oh,
were all kinds of medical things.
right now it sound no disrespect, brother, but it sounds like somebody you read some scholarship that's like counterintelligence, because not only was King James for tobacco, there's a lot of scholarship to prove, I mean, to insinuate that King James had the Bible rewritten with terms in it. I mean, with ideologies in it, like slaves be obedient to your masters, to brainwash people to grow tobacco because that was his cash crop. And the dates line up. The King James version of the Bible was what, 16? What I got in my book? Hold on one second. 16. Where are you at? Where are you at? 1611. 1611. There it is. So
That is the one.
right. So, when did the slave trade hit the shores of Virginia? 1619, my friend. That's no
Hmm.
coincidence. You know what I'm saying? He was lining up the
Yeah, but
ideology, and the King James version. I'm not saying all Bibles, but I'm saying the King James version of the Holy Bible, as proved by Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, is weaponized. It's weaponized to make darker skinned people, Africoid people, indigenous people feel like they're not worthy and exalt a European Jesus Christ. Um, you have to keep in mind that the letter J was created in 1600. So I mean, this it's a weapon. That version. I'm not. I drive people crazy with this. I'm just talking about that specific version, right? Um, it all lined up with his tobacco crop. He needed slaves to grow tobacco. That was his cash crop. And you can't enslave somebody who's proud of themselves. You got to get somebody to make them think that they need to be obedient to their masters. They need to what did Joseph Ben Yakinen say? The Queen of Sheba. Joseph Ben Yakinen went all the way off on King James. He said the Queen of Sheba commanded a greater portion of land than a European has ever seen, and it would no way would she bow before a peasant king like Solomon. If Solomon, this Yosef Ben Yakin, I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing, but he said if Solomon even existed, if he existed, he was because a lot of people say Solomon is a parable. It's not really a real person, but Solomon. But anyway, Yosef Ben Yakinen said if Solomon ever existed at all, he would have been a peasant in the presence of the Queen of Sheba, and the Queen of Sheba would not apologize for her blackness because blackness was the thing back then, you know. But that's that weaponology, you know. Forgive me though I'm black and comely. That means forgive my black skin. I'm cute though. You know what I'm saying? That's
who
bullshit. She
wrote
was
that though? Do you know where that's
mm,
written?
that's
Lancelot Andrews. We're going in today. King James commissioned Desiderius Erasmus. I'm gonna put him in the jumbotron for you guys. He commissioned a group of people. Lancelot Andrews was the main writer of the King James version. The New Testament was created by a guy named Desiderius
And that's
Erasmus.
where it says black and comely.
Black.
Song of,
That's yeah. That's Lancelot Andrews.
Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. But yeah, the what I'm referencing is that I'm not saying that you're necessarily off. I'm just saying that you may want to check some of your sources because King James specifically had scholars during that time, people who were high level in not only government but in finance. They were trying to get control of the banks. They were on every side, and during his life, and especially after he died, they had people trying to defame him by saying that he was a homosexual. They wrote
Can
articles about him. It's similar to when Malcolm X passed away, and then
where
the
what
Griot
do
created
you know
hit
do you know
pieces.
where do you know where that's written where he that he's gay? Is that like one source or just general? I don't know. I never
There
saw it
was
before.
one. I don't know the name of the guy who wrote the hit piece, but it was one guy who spread the rumor. He got it into newspaper, the equivalent of newspaper papers at that time,
Woodcut?
and it started spreading, and then more people started picking up on it and writing books and all kinds of things. So those kind of things passed down over the generations. But yeah, they really have twisted a lot of narratives surrounding him. But I just encourage you to look a little more into that because almost everything, including tobacco, including homosexuality, including witchcraft, he was against, staunchly against, in fact. But
Well, well, this it doesn't line up for I mean a plethora of reasons, but let's just deal with this. This state of Virginia was named after his wife's chastity, so that's a fact. So if he had these all these many children, why was a queen a virgin?
he had 9 children. I don't
Yep.
know.
So that doesn't line up.
I exactly. That's why I'm thinking we may be talking about two different kings because the king I'm talking about had
But
nine
didn't the house
children.
of Stewart die with him? Was there another Stewart that succeeded after him? Didn't he lose the crownship?
Uh, I believe that he did have someone who he passed it down to. I don't know all the history. All I know is he had multiple children by one wife. I mean, the wife had a lot of children.
That's just like Henry.
Yeah.
That's like Henry VIII.
Are
We
we
all
talking
know
about
how he
Henry the?
got
Are we
down.
talking about Henry the First?
No, we talking
King
about
Henry
James, King James
or
Stewart,
Yes.
King Henry? King
James,
James
James,
King
was
James
James
one.
Stewart.
succeeded by King James was succeeded by his son Charles.
It
So he
was
did
more
have
than
a
one King
son.
James. We're talking about different
You know
people because
something?
I've never
And
heard.
she's right. She's right. But one of those King Charles was a black man. And
But
Yeah,
King Charles
if
was
you
Let's
see the
from.
pictures
He
of
was
relax.
King
also he was
Charles,
also known
if you
King
see the
Charles the
pictures
Sixth
of King
of,
Charles,
of
you see the
Scotland.
blackness in him. And they look like Ryan Leslie and shit. You look like Prince. If you look at King
exactly.
Charles, he light
Okay.
skinned,
Can
he
we?
light skinned, dark haired and everything. But go
Okay.
ahead.
We're getting
Let's get to one point. This King James of
yeah, we're getting
England
off the
has he
yeah.
does have 9 children. They didn't all survive to adulthood, but that doesn't mean anything because remember, the footman was the father of a lot of those Habsburg's children because they were drooling and they didn't have use of their jaws, and their women wouldn't couldn't have children with. They were probably sterile and not right. But I'll look more into this because I didn't write a lot about him. I just wrote that he wrote the the King James Bible and the demonology book. I didn't go into depth on his character. I don't know anything about his character, but I'll look into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know anything definitively that he didn't have children, but I know that he didn't have children with the queen because she bragged on her virginity. But it's also I've read scholarship that said he was homosexual. You know, I'm not nothing against anybody's lifestyle, but uh, did not really care for women, and he had a lover, Lord Buckingham. Y'all can just Google that. Um,
yeah.
but in the
Buckingham's
jumbotron,
Palace. Buckingham's
there you go.
Palace.
I put about the Bible. Somebody said who wrote it, the King James version. It
William
was
Shakespeare.
Lancelot and
William
yeah,
Shakespeare
that
wrote it.
what that's speculative. That's that's speculative. There are clues in there that say that William Shakespeare wrote it, helped write it. I could dig it because it is written like a Shakespearean play. I used to be a student of Shakespeare. I used to study theater at some point in my life, but and it is written very Shakespearean esque. But I don't know that for a fact. But what I do know is it was commissioned. I mean, it was written by Lancelot Andrews, and the Novum Testamentum, which is the New Testament, was written by a um uh I'm trying not to be ugly, a LGBTQ guy named Desiderius Erasmus. He was from, where is he from? I want to say Amsterdam. I mean, like Netherlands. He Dutch. Yeah, he was Dutch. So and it was a reinterpretation. So my point is, there are several books of the Bible, and that's not my topic. My topic is that the King James version of the Bible, which is has weaponized language and weaponized narratives with respect to women, black women, and black people of color. Was used intentionally to lower the self esteem and the morale of indigenous people, including but not limited to Pocahontas. If you look in the
That's
jumbotron at her
true.
pic, if you look at the picture I put in the jumbotron, look at the picture of her before when she was into her indigenous religion, her animistic religion. Hold on one second, my dog's driving me crazy. Stop it! Stop it! Come here! Come on! Come on! You're getting on my nerves. Um, when she was into her original her indigenous religion at the top, I have before kidnapping 2A. If you look at 2B after kidnapping, she's dressed up like an English woman. Now, how did they use her? They used her tactically. She got married and she was impregnated, thereby creating a baby that was half English. That act right there gave King James and the English Commonwealth claims to the land. It was official. The deal was done. After King James had official claims to the land, then they threw Amanute a party. They renamed her Sarah or something. What they call, I forgot her English name. Let's see, I may have put it in my book. I want to say they gave her an English name. I didn't put it in my book. How you like that? Could somebody Google that? What name did Pocahontas get after she got married? They gave her a Christian name. Oh, that's it, Rebecca. She got called Rebecca. So, and I did put it in my book. Well, Rebecca was throwing a party in England, and Rebecca and her family, her indigenous family, were put on a boat and sent to Great Britain, where they would be greeted by Her Majesty King James and thrown a big party. Only thing is, when she got to England, King James was nowhere to be found, and she was asked to go wait back on the boat where they fed her and her family, and she became ill and died on the boat. They poisoned her. They used her to have that baby to give her claims to the land. We're playing with a very diabolical group of people. Um, Savannah, what's on your mind?
That King James does look very suspicious. I'm looking at his picture.
Oh Lord.
Lord, Lord, he does look not all
My
the way white. He might have be like Queen Charlotte issue.
That's exactly what it is. Charlotte was also a black woman. A lot of people don't know that.
Tall,
Yeah, she
dark, and handsome.
was. She was Portuguese. She had, you know, African admixture. She came through the Portuguese house to the German family. Well, they're all
The
German, but
Meck
they're
the
the German.
Mecklenburg Strelsies.
She's definitely the queen didn't even deny that. That's not even deniable.
I'll go ahead and drop down. I just wanted to point out that yeah, there were people during the time similar to what the griot tried to pull with Malcolm X, similar to people writing rumors about our great MLK Jr. There were people during that time who were writing rumors about him and trying to defame him because his name, they knew it would last for ages. I mean, the 1611 version of the Bible is still produced today. And so they created these rumors, and because there weren't any people checking them, like we have the new black media today, who would check these, you can't even really call them rumors, just flat out lies about Malcolm X and others. But because no one was checking them, those kind of documents have been left behind, and people get a hold of them, and then they make assumptions about his sexuality and other things, when in reality he was against almost every single thing that they tried to make a rumor about him for. But
Well,
anyways,
well,
you
well.
can go ahead.
I don't want to. I don't want this to be focused on his sexuality. I don't care. That's none of my business. Well, what I will say is he wasn't a fucking hero. He commissioned that slave trade, and he commissioned it to make money off tobacco. Now that's a fact. So, whether he intentionally used that Holy Bible, his version of the Bible to facilitate the slave trade that's argumentative. That his version of the Bible does have some bull in it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's a fact. But whether that those bullshit narratives in that version were intended, in my opinion, I think they were. But that's an opinion. It's not a fact. But the fact of the matter stands true that he commissioned that slave trade with the intent of making money. So he was not a good guy.
I'm back.
Go ahead,
Any
Savannah. Oh, I'm
any
sorry, Wanda. Go ahead.
information? I was just going to say, do you know of any instances where he was talking to the missionaries? Because they were definitely the architects of this, and I didn't get to the point of where he was really straight out colluding with them. Have you heard anything about that?
I think
You
yeah.
know, like that guy Bartholomew, whatever his name is.
Uh,
He's before his time, but still, I just wondered if he was part of the missionary push to enslave certain people, or if he was doing a solo thing.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I think Yosef Ben Yakinen may have mentioned a little bit of that in Black Man of the Nile. I'll go get it in a moment and flip through it. But I will say that was the protocol of the time. You know what I'm saying? Europeans, um, I want to say they did that before King James. The Portuguese,
Yes.
you know, um, I have a chapter in my book that talked about, was it the Portuguese or the Spanish? I'm getting hazy on it, but one of those groups found out that through notes from Vasco da Gama that there were chocolate women who walked around bare breasted. It was a Portuguese, and that they washed. That's interesting if you think about it. The fact that they washed, they bathed regularly, really got their attention. Oh man, you mean women are walking around naked and they're clean? Wow. What did I put in my book? I said
Wait, who was that? Which group was that?
the
The
Portuguese.
Africans? The Africans or
Yeah,
the okay, because they said the same thing about the women in Tierra del Fuego in the Patagonia region. They're bare-breasted and they're brown and they used to those women are what do you call that where you don't have to live inside? You're adapted. You can like lay outside 24/7. You
I
don't
don't know
need
what it's called, but
shelter.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
They didn't need shelter and they were bathing in like 45-degree waters
Wow.
and they didn't get cold. They would just jump in and wash up and stuff.
In my book on page 44, I had an article that says, the Portuguese finally chose an identity. Am I a holy missionary, a slave trader, a pimp, or a gun salesman? I said, quote, although the Portuguese came to the Congo to acquire slaves, that was the intent, right? They first portrayed themselves as holy men of God who traveled to a strange new land to spread the good word and save African souls. However, after sexually abusing helpless African women and girls, human trafficking and double crossing the Congolese king Afonso. Side note: Afonso was not that bright. The Portuguese got back on task and started to reacquire slaves. They acquired slaves any way they could, as mentioned earlier, would often enslave African royalty. So, Dr. Chancellor Williams said the mission. Okay, back to your point, Wani. Chancellor Williams said the mission fathers, the war dogs of the Lord. That's what they call themselves, a war. Did you know that, Wani? The missionary,
No.
the Portuguese missionaries called themselves the war dogs.
Why?
William says war dogs of the Lord were most helpful as spearheads into the interior chiefdoms to form slave hunting alliances in exchange for discarded guns. The war dogs were, according to Dr. Chancellor Williams, were the Jesuits, early Jesuits. So, missionaries were basically came from warriors. It was a mission, you know, a Christian version of Mohammedanism, Muhammad or die. Remember early Islam?
Okay, so they were so they were by spreading it by the sword as well.
Yep, no difference. I guess walking up to somebody saying Muhammad or die is a little more harsh, but same thing. The black, what's on your mind?
Dang.
Oh, did I skip over you, Savannah?
It's okay.
No, go ahead, baby. I didn't see your hand.
Well, Wani, we will let Wani go. Um, you can let him go.
Come on, Savannah. I wasn't trying to do that. My space was been acting up, so you probably
Yeah,
had your hand up and I didn't couldn't see it.
no, you're okay. I like lost my train of thought. You can let him go.
Okay, we'll come back to you. The black, what's on your mind?
What's going on, family? Uh, I just wanted to say, I posted a quote Bartholomew, Columbus' brother, and what the Jesuit priest said about about the women and how clean they kept themselves. But that's all I want to say for right now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I when I did my scholarship on my first book, I found something very interesting. I found that um, Africa fell because, well, number one, the Europeans were evil criminals who, I mean, who would perpetrate being a holy man of God to save your soul when you really had an intent to rape? You know, that's I don't even have a word for that.
Depends
But
on the God. I think we just don't know what their God is.
you know, Wani, that's a very powerful point. You know, the Lord don't mean creator. That means bow, and you know that's satanic. So that's a really good point. I remember when I was in Accra. I'm not Accra. Cape Coast in Africa. We were at the slave dungeon, and the Europeans would rape. I've said this before, but they would pick a woman in the morning to rape in front of everybody to lower the spirits of the people and to create a mixed race baby to put in positions of leadership as tragic mulatto, according to Tariq Nasheed. But while they were raping this innocent child, um maybe I need to be careful with that word. While they were having their way with this innocent child, um they would hold Christian church. So that right there would really give credence to Wani's theory. Like, wow, how could you praise the Lord while you're doing something like that? Well, maybe we don't understand who the Lord is. Good point, Wani. Well, what I was going to say is, obviously it's a given that the Portuguese and Europeans were evil, deranged individuals. But what is not reflected in Africa in history is how complicit Africa was, or B, how silly African leadership was when these people were ravaging the land. And let's look at the Congolese king Afonso. Anybody ever heard of him? It's Affon.
Not really.
See, we need to know about it. According to Chancellor Williams, the Congolese king Afonso found himself in the middle of the fires from several directions and hamstrung the Portuguese advisor who had vetoed the power even on the king's actions. Well, what did Afonso do? Alfonso bought into the hype. So the Portuguese showed up initially talking about, hey, I want to save your soul. Can I teach you about the Lord? Can I teach you about my Lord and Savior? And Alfonso said, oh, let them in. They're talking about the Lord. Let them in. What type of king would do that? Why are they so trusting? That's
Goofballs.
what I'm saying. And by basically, I'm paraphrasing Dr. Williams. By the chance, by the time Alfonso figured out that, wait a minute, these motherfuckers are some crooks, it was too late. Chancellor Williams says, quote, the Portuguese Christianization of the Congo created something more than chaos. It was a revolting mess, no matter from what angle it was viewed. To begin with, the priests were not only among the leading slave traders, but they also owned slave ships to carry the black cargoes to distant lands. Remember, one of the most famous slave ships was called what? The Good Ship Jesus. Y'all, did y'all know that?
Hmm. But
Priests.
how is this? Don't they already like selling human beings? Why do they need to be tricked into it if they're doing it now for free? I don't
Oh, no, 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 oh, no,
understand.
no, 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 no. Alfonso, yeah, yeah, he liked it. No, no, no. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's not the point. Not being tricked into it. I'm saying being overrun. Like just if
Oh, mass marketing them.
yeah, they got caught up in, they got overrun by European. It just became a free for all. If the African royalty in the Congo and sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa had been more organized and been like, okay, well, shit, we gonna make some money off this shit, that would have been wrong. But things wouldn't have got out of hand. You know what I'm saying? It would have been kind of more controlled. But they were too busy showing off to the European. I mean, they really believed that the Europeans was on their side, and it's been said before that the Europeans was looking at them selling. It's a different culture. The Europeans looked at all African black people at the phenotype. Like, how could you sell? How's it said? If you could sell somebody that looks like you to me, then I don't respect you. That was a European frame of thought.
What about them? They're killing people that look just like them that are the same ethnicity. In Ukraine, they do that all the time.
That's
Why are
another
they
good
so
point.
critical about they're so critical about that? They'll bring that up. Well, your own people sold you. Actually, they didn't, but okay.
Yeah, that's true.
And but they murder their own people and have 100 years wars against each other, and they look the same. They can't even tell each other apart.
And the Europeans will bomb a fucking child hospital. I saw that a couple years ago. The Russians like fucking bombed and how you gonna bomb a maternity ward? Come on.
I don't know. They
That's
sure
some
did.
that's some wild shit. Well, Chancellor says the priests the priests also had their harems of black girls, some having as many as 20 apiece. Let me teach you about the Lord. Come on, Savannah.
Oh, thank you. I think what happens is five topics go by and then I like have something. But basically, at the start of the room, I think we were talking about last night in that space, and I thought it was really interesting because growing up, we used to always hear about how African children or just young adults were more respectful than we were to our elders. By far, not by definitely not the case last night. But I also had like a not like an interest, but like we had a teacher in my honors English who was really really into like Shakespeare,
Hmm.
and she shared some of her theories with us, just following along with history and the timelines. When you look at Scotland and their break off from the Catholic Church, they wanted to follow more the Protestant route, right? And then we also know that King James wanted to divorce his wife because she was not producing any heirs for him, which was also hurting his "I'm not gay," um, "I'm not gay" argument. So he commissioned for, she thinks Shakespeare, because if you look at Psalms 46, I believe, and you count like 46 down, 46 up, you get shake and
And
spear.
Spear, right? That's what I was talking about earlier. That's exactly what I was talking about. Savannah, to the room, kind of
Hmm.
went over a bunch of people's heads. That's been what's the guy's name? Anthony Browder talks about that. He says you can find King James had it hidden in the Bible,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
and and
yeah.
with
Go
that, and she talked about, because when we read Caesar and um, Othello and all of that, and Midnight Summer's Dream, we learned the old English, right? And so when we're going through it, she's making sure that we have a grasp of everything, and she's making sure we're getting all the translations and the meanings. And when you look at the relationship between Mark Antony and Brutus, they were lovers.
Uh-oh.
Like when you look at the timeline when everything was going down, Mark Antony wasn't even upset when his wife passed away. He was more upset when his lover passed away. That's when he fell on his sword.
Hmm.
Um, and with given all of that, it kind of like fits into the, well, he wanted to get divorced so he could find someone to produce him an heir to prove that he wasn't gay. But then when you go and he goes and picks the gayest screenwriter who only uses men in all of his plays, it kind of just, I don't know, kind of adds to it. He's best friends with all the gays.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I can really piss people off with this space, but I don't want to get off topic. But Desiderius Erasmus, it's a fact. I put him in the damn jumbotron. Look him up. This is a fact. Desiderius Erasmus, who was a Dutch LGBT gentleman, um, he wrote the basically the Novum Testamentum. He wrote the New Testament, and there are a lot of scholars that say he created the apostle. He created John. You know, and if you read the New Testament, John, I remember being in church with my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and she would always say, "Wow, John sound kind of like." I can't say what she said. John sounds like a little like he likes, you know. John sounds like, I'm trying to say it in a nice way, but you know. And then you remember it says John was the one Jesus loved the most. Like John was written by, that was Desiderius Erasmus, so you have to really know this stuff, you know. Go ahead, John Horse.
Hey, what's good, everybody? I just wanted to say, yeah, hearing that that description about how they, they would rape the women in front of everybody and stuff like that. That's one of the main reasons why, like, when people say y'all got a problem with America, just leave. It's like, nah, I got unfinished business, bruh.
Yep.
We got unfinished business, bruh. Like, we got hot, like, I mean, you hear people always say you got to get your lick back, but we got to get our lick back for that. There's no ever forgiving that. And as far as the question, were the colonists thankful? No, of course not. These people, they don't have they don't come from that type of culture. So, and then also too, when you were saying, what do the white supremacists worship? Well, they don't worship. Well, I'll put it to you this way: they do worship something, but their god is the gun. They worship
Mm.
the gun. They don't worship God. They worship guns. That's
They
what
wor
they.
they worship power. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
they're Wiccans,
Yeah,
pagans. When you look at the whole thing with their whole thing with abortion, sacrifice.
interesting. And this shit gets deep when you really
When you
look
look
at
at
it.
Christmas, the Christmas tree, Jeremiah 11, 1 11, what's the verse? Talks about the Christmas tree and the pagan practices, right? Like they basically just added in their own deviant practices and rituals and combined it to get more followers. Like when you look at the documentary Exterminate All the Brutes, the kings and queens made it a mission, yes, to incorporate priests to bless over the land right before they did the killing and the pillaging. A priest blessed over it.
Yeah, that's what people don't
I mean,
understand. Go
they
ahead, one.
well, because people were pagan, and that had been going on for a zillion years. I mean, it's just been going on. So when they wanted to have Christianity, they had to go along with what other people were doing. Just like in South America, that's why the Pope was praying to the Pachamama, because the people in South America have been praying to the Pachamama and they're not going to stop. So they all they can do is try to incorporate it into Catholicism or into something. They place their churches right on top of where the indigenous people would put their offerings, flowers, and things. Wherever they had a special place, that's where they plopped a Catholic church because they want to trick you into it. These pagan holidays have been going on forever. I mean, there's nothing wrong with celebrating, you know, harvest times and the spring and things like that. I'm not saying that the whole notion of celebrating summer solstice and autumn equinox and things like that, there's nothing wrong with that. But those were developed into pagan times of year and holidays and the images. And so they knew that that was very strong, and they were going to have to say, well, Jesus was born on this day, and Easter is this time, in order to go along with these things that people are already going to celebrate, because like they're not going to stop celebrating it. That was one of the problems. They didn't stop. They would say, okay, yeah, we're monotheistic, cool. And then behind the scenes they would have all of these things, just like when you look at Pompeii. They have all these idols and all of this stuff on there. A lot of those places they had agreed to be Christian, but they still had all of those idols that they were worshiping. And it's interesting to see some of those caves and some of those places in Pompeii. Those it's still covered over, and you can still see what they were doing that day.
A lot of that go like paganism and stuff. That goes like back to probably. I mean, I know for a fact it goes back to Rome, so it goes super super far back, but probably even further back than that too.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
John, go ahead, one.
I was just going to say real quick, it depends on what you label paganism, because like animism is simply the notion that, in which I have it naturally. I believe there's energy in everything. I believe
Everything.
mountains are special, or maybe a tree is special. I believe that without any, training or being told. It's not in my culture to be an animist, but I believe that. And come to find out, everything has atoms, and it is all, it does all have energy. And that's actually true. These things actually have energy. Even a wooden table in your house, or a rock, something that looks like it's not energized, it all has atoms. So these things, stones and crystals or whatever, they could have special properties and energies. But that is what, a Christian would call that paganism. So I guess it depends on what paganism is, anything that's not Christianity, apparently. So yeah, if you're doing drawing pentagrams and trying to summon demons into something, that's a little bit different than saying, it's spring and I want to celebrate spring, or something like that, or I want to have a Thanksgiving dinner because it's harvest time. That's a little bit different. Um, that's what I would call paganism, is summoning demons, versus just saying it's Thanksgiving or it's this time of year where we eat pumpkiny things and sweet potatoes and things that happen during Thanksgiving time. Sorry.
No, it's a really good point. And there's a lot of scholarship done by Graham Hancock on that. But I want to address something that John Horace said earlier, maybe 15 minutes ago, about how he was saying, he said Black Americans want to, it's something about get back. And what he made me think about is how a lot of the problems systemically that we deal with in our community stem from the practices that we dealt with, like um, uh, the having the way with the black female in public venue. What did that do? That was intentionally done to break the spirit of the black male. So you witnessing your family member, your wife, your girlfriend being violated, and and a fucking crowd of people, and you can't do anything about it. What does that do to black female confidence in the black man as in the role of a protector? It shatters that. So you fast forward 500 years, and you have a culture where there's very low confidence in general. There are exceptions, but in general, there's low confidence in the black male being a protector, and the roles are reversed, and we don't know why. Another way that the look at this is put to me is during slavery we weren't allowed family. That's obvious. Well, Oftentimes, foundational Black American men were used as stud service to create babies, but black men noticed right away that if they showed any type of affection towards one of their children, the child was immediately sold to another plantation. That was protocol. You can't have any type of black cohesion or black collective unity. So, as a psychological defense, what did foundational Black American men try to do just to keep their children from being sold? They started to act like they didn't give a flying fuck about their kid. It was just an act. It was just an act. But fast forward 300 years, and that's there. The whole ideology. Although the statistics, the actual real statistics, show that black men make the best fathers, um, of any group. We're the most loyal fathers. We're the most dedicated. But there's a stigma of black men leaving. When that stigma is not understood, black men had to leave to keep their fucking child from being sold. I think Black Truth was up, and then we'll go to the Black, and then John Horace. Go ahead, Black Truth.
Man, there are a lot of things I relate to Sister. I believe it's Savannah, Sister Five, when she was saying, sometimes we get on one subject and then we're on another. Man, there's a lot. Okay, so Miss Five, Miss Savannah was referencing Jeremiah chapter 10 when it was talking about the tree, the pagan gods, worshiping that tree during this time of the year. And in particular, this time of the year is around what they call Christmas, which is really known as, Sister Wani put it, a Roman pagan holiday, namely Saturnalia. This was a very evil time of the year, especially for the slaves, because we were given a license for a short period of time to celebrate, to join with family members, to enjoy one another's company, and then on New Year's Day, which I'm sure Professor Allen knows about, it was considered hiring day. So hiring day was the day in which the debts, the debtors would come and collect debts, and a lot of us would be sold off to different plantations at the very beginning of the year. It was known as hiring day. So it was kind of a bittersweet time of the year during Saturnalia, because we were getting ready for the potential of a family member being sold off, or maybe quote unquote rented out to another plantation, sometimes very far away, in order to settle debts that plantation owners had. The other thing I wanted to point out was it looked like the scholar who you referenced with Emmaus, the one that was a homosexual, you were saying, who was in multiple homosexual relationships or something. It looks like that one was created in the 1500s,
Yeah, no, this is
whereas
Darius Erasmus. Yeah, he was in the 1511, I think. No,
yeah,
15 something. Yeah.
uh, whereas the 1611 version, about 100 years later, was with King James. Again, I know it seems like I had the cape on for him, but there were a lot of strange
Well,
things that were
let me
going
clarify. Let
on.
me clarify. The reason why I brought up Desiderius Erasmus is the Novum Testamentum was in the canon of King James's version, and I just wanted to point out the Novum Testamentum came out of the imagination of Desiderius Erasmus, for in large part. And that's hard. That's a hard thing to hear, but prove me wrong.
Oh no, I completely agree. I don't really recognize anything from 15 something. Yeah, 1611 was when a lot of Hebrew scholars were taking from the original text and translating it. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, this is quite the time of the year, especially with hiring day approaching. I would like to have, Professor Allen. Do you have any insights about that time of the year? How we were treated during slavery?
Um, from well, there's a good book by Manly P. Hall. called "The Secrets of All Ages" that you can buy it if you can find it. It's kind of hard to find now, but I don't know why that book is legal. He just tells it, but he talks about all those, pagan stories and how they evolved into, um, like Easter is Esther, the god of fertility, or is it a god of fertility, Wani, or
Ashtar. Ashtar, you're right. It's a god of
I'm gonna
fertility.
say stuff wrong. I'm from Alabama. The god of fertility, and it makes sense in how it's been turned into something else. Easter, which is about the Charis, which we call the Christ, and it's just so much confusion going. Like, no, they don't have that nothing to do with that. But when you know the truth, it makes sense because that's why the bunnies are around because bunnies are a sign of what fertility. But Esther,
Mm-hmm.
Astar, yeah. So yeah, I'm saying that to say, the hiring day, it's all convoluted and mixed together. Really, in my view, we're living in the same system. It just constantly gets remixed, um, to keep energy going. I guess I don't know, like what Wani was saying about the churches being built on sacred shrines. It's to keep energy, redirect energy, and just keep it flowing. For some reason, these people need our energy, and I'm not gonna profess that I understand why, but I think they do. They need our energy, and we're already accustomed to having certain ceremonies on certain days, so they just remix it and keep it flowing. But as to why they do it, I don't know. If anybody knows, please educate me because I would love to know. The Black, what's on your mind?
Yeah, it's crazy that like how you say that we have coping mechanisms from way back from slavery,
Yep.
and it reminds me of the work that Dr. Joy DeGray do in the post traumatic slave syndrome that we still deal with, and like you said, a lot of things from the past have been remixed, like the tenant laws, like they made things that we like to do illegal. And
Yep.
when you look at time throughout history, like most of the things that we used to do as a culture became illegal. Like, you know what I'm saying, tobacco starting to become illegal and stuff. So it's just crazy how they use either our vices or the things that we love and make it illegal just to either try to force us to live the way that they want us to live and conform in certain ways or so-called assimilate to their type of culture. But it just shows you that these are like sick degenerate people, and they like a death coat, like one they like to say.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And but you're right. Back to Joy to Group. It seems like we bounce around from topic to topic, but we really aren't. It's all the same topic. It's manipulation, it's deception, it's remixing. But it's just it goes in different directions. But yeah, the whole Joy to Gruism, we're living in post traumatic slave disorder. Like the whole thing with black men and appearing to abandon a child. You can have there's something called what's it called? Acoustic memory. Shit, I forgot the name of it. You have a memory, a genetic memory, maybe. When I was at Harvard years ago, a study was done on a bird, and the name of the bird escapes me, but it's not the point. The point is, it's a little helpless bird in the Amazon rainforest 10,000 years ago, who kept getting eaten, and nature smartened it up, and it realized, well, fuck it, I'm a bird. We got tall trees, so the bird flew to the top of those trees where it had no natural predator, and it lived there for thousands of years, just making babies and multiplying without a natural predator. Until one day, some hawk or bird of prey flew over and was like, "What the fuck is that?" And it became prey by just one hawk. Now, birds of prey, are real interesting. They fly into the sun and attack their target out of the sun. Fighter pilots adapted that technique. Why? Because when you look at the sun, you get blinded. You don't see it before it hits you, right? Real smart. So this bird who discovered the tops of the trees would leave its hatchlings to go find food. And before the hatchling was, one of the hatchlings was destroyed by the hawk swooping down out the sun. The last thing the hatchlings would see collectively is everything become dark because it's coming. The bird flew into the sun, coming out the sun to blow. I've seen a fucking hawk do that to a pigeon one day at my apartment, and they come down with such force. It's not a they don't swoop down and take them, ladies and gentlemen. They come down at the fucking 60-degree angle, full speed, and at the last minute they put their feet out, their talons, and they hit them with force applied. I've watched a damn hawk hit a pigeon, and the pigeon it fucking exploded. It sounded like a gunshot. Pow! I was like, what the fuck? I heard pow, and then like feathers and pieces of body parts start falling out the tree. And the hawk landed on the ground. Was like, okay, I'll take this, I'll take that, and I'll take this, and then flew.
Why are they so mean?
Huh? Huh?
Y-
Why are they so mean?
That's kind of
y-
merciful, wanting because he came
It's
out.
not nice. That made a loud noise. It's very disrespectful to the bird.
Yeah, but the point of the study was some Harvard grad students took some of them eggs from the Amazon and brought them to Cambridge in a lab and hatched them in a controlled environment. And they wanted to know what would happen to the hatchling that's never been to the Amazon if you put them together and cast a shadow on them. So lo and behold, they got hatchlings together, and somebody put a lamp over them, a little heating lamp, and somebody put a piece of paper in front of the lamp, simulating a shadow being cast on the hatchlings that which never been to the Amazon. Once that shadow was cast on them, what did they do? They freaked the fuck out and got scared. They knew that somebody probably was going to die, but here goes the problem. How did they know that? They'd never been to the Amazon. My point,
Well,
my
Epigenetics.
it's
they have to, or else they won't survive. The new birds have to have something within them from the previous generations.
yeah, it's genetic memory. I forgot that it was a real pretty fancy name for it. I'm just
Hmm.
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
epigenetics. Okay, yeah. So that,
It might be another one.
and how no, that works. And how that's relevant is the black was talking about trauma and Joy DeGruy. We're if a little bird is dealing with epigenetic memory of being destroyed in the Amazon by a bird of prey, what type of shit are we dealing with on a day to day basis? We're dealing with trauma. We're dealing with rape. We're dealing with all kind of shit floating around our head, and the world says, "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps." Go to
And
hell.
it's recent. That's the thing. People could argue, well, everybody was enslaved at one point. Well, we do have collective human trauma and issues collectively, but ours is recent. So that's why it's more pronounced. Someone who's Italian is not going to be having effects of what happened during the Greco Roman Empire as much as someone like me who has a great grandfather that was enslaved. Of course, I'm going to be feeling the percussions of that in my life.
Right, right. Black Truth, what's on your mind?
Hey, I do appreciate the mic, but I believe brother John Horse was raising his hand before.
Oh, okay. Thank you for doing that. John Horse, go ahead.
Yeah. Nah, I just you know, when it comes to the white supremacists, like, really looking, into slavery, looking at, the spiritual ramifications of it, one thing I remember Jason Black, the Black Authority, what he would always say, he would say that, slavery for white society was a spiritual thing. It was like spiritual for them to rape black people, spiritual for them to hang us. Like those hangings to them were like crucifixions. It was like, they still, a lot of white supremacists still view themselves as Romans. They still see themselves that way. They basically, the whole entire United States government, how the society is ran today is based on the Roman Empire. So these people, they still operate like that. You know what I'm saying? So they believe that everything that they put us through that we deserve. And once black people, what I'm saying, as a collective, once you understand that they, oh nigga, your family deserves to be poor, your family deserve to have their wealth taken. That's when your how you start to view them and how you start to move a lot of things really start to change, really, really fast. Like, you're not going to. I think one of the things that we're afraid to do in a certain sense as a people, I think we're afraid to lose our humanity when it comes to dealing with the white supremacists. In
Tell me
order,
more about that. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that.
we're gonna
Losing
have
your
to we're gonna have to lose our compassion for them. We're
oh,
gonna have to lose our mercy. Like the thing is, Dr. Wilson actually even speaks about it. Like, she doesn't directly say it. Like, she doesn't come out. Even Dr. Nilly Fuller, they say it indirectly. Like, she'll say that you're afraid. Like, she'll say that, the reason why a lot of the stuff that we continue to deal with is just simply afraid to die. Once you lose that fear and you just, you start having compassion for the white supremacists, you know what I'm saying, we'll start getting a lot more stuff done.
interesting, interesting. Good point. All right, I think Black Truth was up, and then Savannah.
Yeah, just wanted to reference the Willie Lynch letter is similar to what you were talking about earlier. They would purposefully take the strongest Negro, tie him up to two horses, burn something so that the horses would go in opposite directions in order to, tear the strongest male apart as a signal to everyone else that, hey, this is your strongest, this is your best, this is your leader, your strength, and this is what we were able to do to him. So all that trauma, yeah, definitely is passed on. And also the point about the females and males in reverse roles, that's all inside of the Willie Lynch letter. Whether you take it as valid or scholarly or not, there are definitely things you can extract from it. And also, I did want to say the eagles are sometimes even more harsh than the hawks. Sometimes an eagle will like take a goat or something and it'll just pick it up, like if it's on a
And
mountain, and just drop it.
that is
And
not nice. I have seen you. How are you lifting this big goat up?
Yeah, I was about to
they're
say.
very strong. Those wings,
Oh
they
my
can carry a
God.
lot of weight. And yeah, they'll just drop an animal, and then if it seems like it's still alive or still moving, it'll pick it up and do it again. It'll fly real high, drop it, and then start feasting. But anyway,
Um, I hope they don't get a hold of any. They could do that to a baby if they could pick up a chubby goat.
They could.
they do.
They could. Something too that I wanted to say also that Professor was speaking about the birds and their memory. I would also say, the birds, how they basically, they got fearful of of the other predators and stuff and they moved to the tree. You could even actually say that about elephants too. Elephants have like a certain type of memory that they have of humans, but it's in reverse. So every time they see a human, especially African elephants, every time they see a human, it's like fuck running. It's on sight. I see you. I'm gonna crush you.
Hmm.
And see, that's the thing that white supremacists they kind of like and understand. Technically, in a certain sense, that's already going on. Ask the Sentinelese how that's going. Your ass
Hmm.
step on that island, you ain't getting off here. No ifs, ands, buts about it. The kids learn too. So I'll just land.
Yeah. About the Willie Lynch letter. I'm not sure if that was ever confirmed that there was a Willie. Was it ever confirmed that Willie Lynch was a real person?
they've speculated they've speculated about it for years, but most people come to the conclusion that there is some validity to it. Will
No, I
the
believed in the protocol. I was just trying to figure out, was he a real guy or not? Because I've been
they
told that
say he was sent specifically to the northeastern part of the U.S. in order to, I believe it was Virginia, which we were talking about before, or South Carolina. He was sent to that region, and he was pretty much teaching everyone in this part of the hemisphere. This is what they claim, that he was teaching them different ways of passing down slavery to the next generation and to the next generation. And one of the things that he was hyper focused on was the black female, because if you focus on her, she's able to break the next generations because she's seeing things in reverse roles. If she sees the strongest male being torn apart before her eyes, and the females having kind of like a leadership role, they would go to the females to speak instead of the males, which is what we saw at the NABJ conference and in many other scenarios. They go to the females to speak as opposed to the males. There, she raises her offspring to be in reverse roles. So it was a real sick thing, but there's too much speculation. I don't know if I can say for a fact that it was
No, no, that's
real.
that's true. They learned that from horses. That because a cult, a wild horse is impossible. You got to kill them. They're impossible to break. But the way you do it is you get to the mama. You break the mama. And if you break the mama, she's gonna teach the young how to be submissive. So I quoted portions of the Willie Lynch letter in my book, but I've tried to find out where was it, but I couldn't find him. But it says establish number one, establish main strict discipline to engender unconditional submission. So they basically beat the shit out of somebody. Number two, create a sense of personal inferiority. Religion can be used that. I have religious and justification of enslavement. Um, the white Jesus, dark skin is inferior, et cetera, et cetera. Number three, instill fear in the mind. Lynching, beating pregnant slaves, murder, castration. Number four, teach the slave the world, to see the world through the master. You know what I'm saying? Taking your culture away, like what we talked about with Pocahontas. Number five, reconstruct the slave to be helpless and perfectly dependent on the individual. You're just a dependent person on white culture. And I think that was it. But yeah, if I might have a space one day talking about how these protocols were very real of instilling inferiority, and they studied. Europeans had cabals of groups involved in a secret society. I'm not going to mention on this space, but they would study on how to keep certain ethnic groups down. And ironically, y'all are not going to want to hear this, but John Locke, Hobbes and Locke, the two y'all, if the two fundamental philosophers behind the Constitution of the United States. Did y'all know that Locke was a advisor to? He was English, but he was an English version of Willie Lynch, who served as an advisor to slave plantations in North and South Carolina. And this, if you look up his fucking ideology, and it'll blow your mind. Basically, I'm paraphrasing Locke, but Locke was like, tell them things like you have freedom and liberty. Make them think that they're free and that they have liberty, and just don't give it to them. And that shit's in the Constitution. Freedom and liberty and justice for all. That was based off of Locke, who himself said, just tell them they have liberty and just don't give it to them. Was it the Black or Savannah? I don't know who was which was which.
I think he's before. If he didn't go, I think he's before me.
Go ahead, Black. Thanks, Savannah.
Uh, you know what all this kind of remind me of? I don't know if y'all seen Jordan Peele show Them on Amazon, but season two it's kind of like it's half the slave the colonial period where, you know what I'm saying, the Puritans and the slaves was somewhat working together going towards the West, and like at the bottom of their house was like where the preacher had got buried and died, and he came back and like the spirit of him came back and like kind of like hunted the family because they was fighting against racism. That was like the trigger, the racism that they was receiving from the neighbors. And it reminded me of what Tariq said last night. Like white people like getting married at slave plantations, and that energy, like, and like one that said everything has energy. So like if you think on it in another dimension, like this is like a energy warfare that we having with them at the same time as this physical warfare that we having with them. And like Jordan Peele, even though he kind of weird to me, like the symbioology and all the movies that he making shows, it really tell you something because he is living kind of like the half white life and half black life too. But instead of being a Drake, he kind of like a insider trying to expose what's going on and how the white people think. Because he gave us new terminology. He gave us the tether. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at these last couple of years since he been making movies, like he's somewhat like the movie version of Kendrick Lamar right now. Kendrick, he fucking up and bringing that same energy of delineation from the music standpoint. He doing it from the movie and entertainment standpoint on that end. And it's like all this coming together with the grassroots and everybody around the world trying to figure out what's going on because we are leaving at the time of Aquarius and after the time of knowledge is it's a new beginning.
Right. We're at the beginning. That's interesting. Make it make sense. I see you had your hand. You kept disappearing. I wasn't ignoring you, brother. You just kept disappearing.
Yeah, I had to disappear for a second.
What's
But
on
I
your
did
mind?
want to respond. Huh?
What's
Say
on your
again.
mind?
I wanted to respond to two things that was spoken about. And first, the first thing I wanted to respond to was the pagan. The fact that uh, the pagan, uh, nobody wants to be a pagan. I'm sure is that right. But if we didn't wrapped ourselves in so much pagan culture. How will we distinguish the truth when it's trying to pull us away from that pagan culture even though we don't want to be a pagan, we want the truth. Secondly, I've read the Willie Lynch letter two or three times, probably more than two or three times. And one of the things that I noticed in it, or didn't notice, but what had been pointed out was that they understood that if black people were allowed to be around their own people and their own culture, that they would like a plant, how it grows a leaf that's been cut off or a stem that's been cut off. They said that black people would naturally revert back to who they are, and that surprised me because they understood the nature of black people.
Yeah, very interesting.
If you get that, you really should get the letter and dissect the letter, and you would be mind blown by what actually is taking place today. What actually is in the letter is actually a modern day what we go through, modern day.
Yeah,
So
which is what.
get that letter, big bro.
Yeah, I've cited it. Go ahead, Savannah. What's on your mind?
I put it in the chat.
Just bringing it closer to the topic of the room, where colonists thankful and did Pocahontas have Stockholm syndrome? So when going through the book Kief Boy and learning about South Africa, can you mic or mute yourself? Make it
Who
make
is
sense.
that? Oh, I got it.
Uh,
I see it. Go ahead.
thank you. He tried to do his best to basically give the reader a good idea of the structure of the apartheid, right? And one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't realize is that yes, they had the four apartheid, like you had your whites, your Indians, coloreds, and then black, but you also had your tribal lands. And the thing about the tribal lands is that the black, quote unquote, South African or South Africans who did not want to be subjected to the rule of the Afrikaners and wanted to keep their tribal religious and rituals and whatnot. But the thing is that they had some of the worst living conditions, right? Living on the tribal lands. And in the book, he was born maybe two generations before the apartheid ended. But prior to that, it was really, if you were born on into a tribal family, 9 times out of 10, you just stayed on tribal lands. Unless your tribal parent ended up marrying someone who wasn't quote unquote tribal. In that case, you lived in the black townships, and with the black townships, they weren't they weren't quote unquote better than the tribal lands. They were still bad, in the sense that they were living on dirt floors and hard to come by and earn money if you weren't working for the white or colored people. You weren't making any money. But one of the biggest things, one of the biggest push to keep, and just because you were living in the black township doesn't necessarily mean that you fell in line with all the ideologies that were being pushed towards you, quote unquote Christianity. But if you did convert to Christianity, then you would then be tapped on the shoulder for different jobs and different opportunities to make money. And so you have this dilemma where you have families who can't feed their kids, and kids are going and having to sell themselves for money, quite frankly, to the military people, and or got people, kids, going to trash mines and trying to feed and get food that way. Um, Basically, they dingled Christianity like a carrot in front of people, like, hey, if you convert to Christianity, you can get jobs, you can earn money, you can go to college, but also too, um, you have to be in the black township. You can't be on the tribal land and say, "Hey, I want to become a Christian." You have to make you have yeah. It's really backwards. It's really weird. But you then have people who would go and become the most devout Christians, all in the name of money, so that they could be able to feed their families and take care of things. And I think that was one of the biggest pushes to, or to people didn't voluntarily become Christian. It was out of survival modes. So yeah, just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, I think it's called survivor's guilt. Um, but good point, Savannah. Black Truth, what's on your mind?
Hey, I actually just looked up where Willie Lynch was based out, where he gave his speech,
Okay,
and it was full circle, like you were saying before, at the James River in Virginia.
there you
So
go.
yeah, we are full circle,
Hmm.
and yeah, I just wanted to leave that. I'm gonna drop
Oh,
down.
oh,
Thank you.
sorry. I also wanted to mention too. You mentioned how everything's pretty much the same, just different names. Yeah, like
Yep.
after slavery, they sent a lot of our grandparents to re-education camps, which I think Black Truth mentioned how Christmas was just like one last get up before hiring day. A lot of kids didn't realize that their parents weren't the ones giving them away. It was the slave owner giving them away. And that same um, relationship can be looked at in terms of foster care, right? Um, Kids are taken out of homes for a plethora of reasons. It's not even just about abuse and whatnot. And so I think using re-education camps turn into foster care, and they just it's all the same thing, separating the children from the family to create and to stop any type of bringing in the cultures and sharing cultures and ideas. Well, but yes, I land my plane.
Okay. Let's see where we. Robbie, talk to us, Robbie Blue. Hold on, let me bring him up first.
Why
Go.
you bring him up? I think Willie Lynch was a black dude or mulatto. He had to be. Just uh, I don't see a white dude just named Willie out here just pushing game like that.
Hey, you don't see a white dude named Willie spitting the game? That's funny as hell, bro.
I had a granddaddy named Willie.
Hey,
It's
bro, I just stole that shit, man. I just stole it. That's hilarious. I never thought about that before. That's why I like these spaces. Is we get number one, foundational Black Americans. We're just natural genius. We got natural flow genius. But I would have never saw it from that standpoint. But he's right. An old man named Willie spitting game. That ain't no white dude. Come on, Robbie Blue. What's on your mind?
Yo, shoot. If you look at all these nicknames that people done had, when I really think about it, Willie Lynch do sound like a name that other black people gave him. Like there go
Yeah.
Willie and he'll get you lynched. Willie Lynch, you know what I mean? Like he's, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like he's a lyncher. No, but I was gonna say there's something that you said that I think is really powerful. Everyone has said it. The efforts that they went to Christianize the world. It's like at some point, like you say, with those secret societies, very educated men started to realize the effectiveness of Christianity on their own people, because they've been offering them pie in the sky for the last 1,000 years. And the same small groups of people have enriched themselves. And the only way they feel like they have tangibles is by comparing it to black suffering, specifically here in America, or the projected idea of suffering. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
black folks will rise above, and that's why they feel insecure, because they understand that we are evidence of a crime. You know what I'm saying? We're evidence of a crime. Every time they look us in the face, they know that not only did they stole, they raped, they pillaged, and they still didn't reap all the benefits. So that's why they need religion. They need religion to pacify people and to kind of get people to me it must be that binding agent, cuz think about it. How did America just stay together for almost 150 years? They didn't have the power of the internet. People had to ride by horseback to pass messages. So that means they had to give them some good dope. They had to give them something to believe in, right? And they learned how to harness this since the Crusades. They're like, how can I get poor white trash to risk everything and enrich myself? And it's like, so since they perfected that with their own, characters like Willie Lynch just do what they're doing, back in there, his best rendition of Myron Gaines, because people don't want to be targeted. Not everybody has the strength to stand in the skin that we're in and to walk a mile in our shoes. To be a foundational black American, to be who we are, you have to be strong. You have to be spiritually rooted, and you have to have a sense of self. We don't have a closet to go hide into. We
Nowhere to
don't have
run.
other groups. Right. So you just got to either believe in yourself or not. It's championship or bust. Everyone else has the luxury of pretending to be a good Christian, pretending to be a part-time minority. But what gets me is just how effective those people, like you said, must have got together and realized how to run a psyop to control white people through racism and Christianity.
Right, right, right. And let me get something clear. I'm not I believe that the story, and I've said this before, of the men fight theology as a historian is true. And it's called the story of the Charist, not Christ, Charist. That means the bringer of gifts. I believe that story is true. The story of Christ and the Holy Trinity is very deep. It's taken out of context. And I've had certain experiences that confirm this. That's besides the point. But to Robbie's point, this story was weaponized by a group of people who wanted to control the world, and that's something we need to keep in mind is the co-opting of our stuff that's remixed and used as a weapon to facilitate our destruction. You know, Anya Saru, what's on your mind? Welcome to the stage.
What's
Was it?
going on, brother? Shout out to Wani. And yeah, you're absolutely correct. I've been listening. I can explain more of the occult perspective of some of the
Please do.
things you guys are speaking on. I mean, if you have, direct questions, I've been studying it for about 10 years. I come, from under the tutelage of, the teachers like Bobby Hemmett and these other teachers, but I've been doing research. And recently, my research has led to certain entities contacting me, like certain military bases want to know more because not only do you uncover the occult faction of it, you get into the physics faction of it, and then you really start to put things together of how we got here, today. But one thing you just said, out of the Menfite theology, even the Kemetic god Ptah, which is one of the chief deities of Kemet, that's where you get the word father from.
Hmm.
When we say all father, it comes from Ptah. Ptah is one of the original syntax in language for father, and even the Nordic or those people, the Vikings adapted Odin to be the All Father as well, and later the word God, which is Gad and Goth, um, which comes from that same Nordic, Scandinavian whole lineage. That word literally means a blonde haired, deity every time we say it. That is a spell as well. That is not what we reference to a universal power of a creator. There's different creators in the world. You study Gnosticism and the oldest texts. Um, First of all, in the Bible, they said make man in the image of us. It never said him. And you hear about the Elohim.
Right, right.
That means there were several deitic
And what
powers.
drives me crazy about that, brother, if I may interrupt you right quickly, is you get pastors that's talking about that will speak against that, and but when it says in the Bible they're reading out of that it's the Elohim, let us make him the image of God. Well, I've heard a pastor say, "Well, who is these Elohims?" I'm like, it's in your face. El is a suffix; it's not prefix. Michael, Michael, Gabriel. You know, that's there. You go. There goes your Elohim right there. But I digress. Continue. You're making a good point.
Right. And when it pertains to us, because we are very special people, they've been having Milano Milano conferences or melanin conferences on what we are. They have about five of them in Europe every year. There's a book called The Melanotropic Peptide, which teaches about the deep intricacies of what the melanin is pertaining the production of electromagnetism and it being a synthesizer for energy to produce more energy. Whenever you saw that Black Panther movie, that was real. We have a kinetic potentiality. That's why they broke us up in our families during slavery. Once we work together and we produce something together, the power becomes immense the more we build momentum. So they have to figure out a way to stop our momentum for their genetic survival, as Francis Cress Wilson knows. I mean, what she wrote that our genetics is the real weapon, you know. And one more thing, anything pertaining to the original holy men, they looked at melanated people as the people of light, really the race of light. The word Christ, as you said earlier, comes from the Christ, Christos in Gnosticism is a light frequency that certain people or this group that we're speaking of, melanated people, we have the ability of limitless creation. There's even a verse about us in the Bible, Nahum chapter 3, verse 9. They say the people that come out of Nubia, they have a power in them that's limitless. It's a limitless power that comes out of us. So they've been digging us up, studying and understanding that the more they dig and they look into history, they know the capability we have. And what Wani said earlier, building the churches, that comes from them studying astrotheology. They look at the stars. There's particular star regions. There's the polar region, and we were the masters of looking at the stars and seeing the nodes of the cymatic frequency of sound and how it related to nature and being. They are looking at the sky and looking at certain regions of stars comparative to the ley lines, the frequency points within the earth, and they line our indigenous people lined up areas of worship along these ley lines pertaining to the stars, and they are trying to mimic that. Well, that's all I have on it right now.
Wow, we went from Pocahontas to ley lines.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Let's
everything got quiet.
continue.
I got lost in thought for a second.
I
That was
like ley lines.
I got completely lost in thought. Okay, anybody else wanted to come up and comment?
Energy grids.
Energy grids. Hmm.
I'm a little sad
Oh,
because I couldn't make out what he was saying.
okay. Oh, you couldn't hear him. Uh, go ahead and make it make sense.
You kind of, I got lost myself, bro. I'm gonna regret for a second. I'll put my hand back up in a minute, bro.
Yeah, yeah. So back to the topic. I know we took a detour earlier on in the space and went hit a whole bunch of different topics. But we're calling this thankful. Those of you who came in the last hour or so missed out on that. The colonists were not thankful. Thankful. The colonists were predatory. We're talking about the colonists of the Jamestown colony. These were predatory people sent on a mission by His Majesty the King to gain land rights. So it was a finesse, or as they call in Memphis, a jug. Did Pocahontas have Stockholm syndrome? You're damn right she did. Look at the pictures in the jumbotron. Look at the picture of Pocahontas when she was 15 when they abducted her. They kept Pocahontas in a concentration camp or whatever you want to call it, a reconditioning camp for over a year. What did they do while she was there? They taught her, they basically, for the first 6 months, as I read, made fun of her. They told her clothes are ugly. Her natural hair and her natural attire is ugly. Does that sound familiar, foundational Black Americans? They told her God was not worthy and she should worship their way. And by the end of her conditioning, they sent a 40-year-old man in there to propose to her to get her with child. That baby completes the circle and gives King James and the English Commonwealth exclusive land rights to an American jurisdiction. It This is tactical. They gave her Stockholm syndrome to get this. If you look at the picture, you'll see it really well. You'll see her in her natural element, and then you'll see the Pocahontas. She almost looked like she turned into a white girl, honestly, in those pictures. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. They had to do a lot of things with Native American women because, like, if they had done that to a white woman, they would have probably married them quickly because they don't like to have, like, they were scared to get pregnant and not be married.
Yep.
But with the Native American girl, they didn't have a they didn't put a premium on virginity. So they encouraged people to be sexually um like experience different people and things. It wasn't a big deal. So that wouldn't have taken away from her with regards to her tribe or how they viewed her. And that's why she was probably outgoing, feeling like, what's the big deal? I'm not going to, harm anything by hanging out with these guys. But just because she had sex, that didn't mean that she was going to want to get married. So they probably had to brainwash her in order for her to want to get married.
Right, right, right. Willingly. Because it wouldn't have made sense to have her unwillingly married because they knew they had to take her to England to parade her around, you know what I'm saying? So it's a finesse. Make it make sense. What's on your mind?
Okay, I was gonna say Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch was a real individual, but that's where the name lynching came from. It came from him himself, or individuals got it from him because of his last name, Willie Lynch. Second part,
Hold on, stop right there.
go ahead, big bro.
Where'd you get this from?
Well,
Where's your scholar?
I read, uh, I read the Willie Lynch letter. You know, it came from him. That's where it came from, bro.
No, I'm saying
Oh,
what scholarship showed you
the
that?
letter, the whole letter. I am the whole letter will tell you where the phrase being lynched came from. It came from Willie Lynch.
I could write a letter tomorrow that said I'm from Santa Claus and I'm giving gifts to all children in Memphis, Tennessee, and just drop it off. How would you know that I was really Santa Claus if I wrote that letter? You know what I'm saying? I'm asking you what
Right.
scholarship? What scholarship do you have to prove it?
The scholarship, as the individual that went back and found a little bit about Willie Lynch, if he read the whole thing, it would explain to him that in itself is how the term being lynched came into play. That was his name. The other part I wanted to say was when you look at Pocahontas, when the people went to war and whoever got conquered, this is not to be derogatory to anybody, but the spoils of war was called booty, and it was the female. And I say that because when you look at Pocahontas, we know that she was an Indian. But being that they were conquered, the spoils of war would be the woman. No different with us in terms of us being drugged here. As being conquered, the spoils of their war was our women. I only say that because, yeah, she looks white because once she was conquered, once we were conquered, you know, she children was produced by her conquerors. So although it's white right now, it wasn't white in the beginning.
Okay. All right. Come on, Savannah.
So I looked up when the word lynch became popular. And when you look it up, that's obviously what it means. And they started using it around like the late 1800s, and that's when Willie Lynch wrote the letter. If you go to Library of Congress, United States Courts.gov,
Okay.
it says that's the letter was wrote in 1712. But I don't know if that's enough to say that it because of his name, but it fits the timeline.
Yeah, there definitely were protocols in place. And I guess that's kind of like an arbitrary little tidbit. I obsess over little things. I'm the guy that locks the door like 3 or 4 times. So, but yeah, there definitely were protocols in place of mind control, and it all goes back to secret societies. I said it, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who just came into space that we were talking about, I forgot how we got to Willie Lynch, but we got there. So let's deal with it. Somebody brought up Willie Lynch, and okay, cool, cool, cool. And I had to remind the room that there were a group of philosophers who are responsible. They're not responsible. The group of philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu. I forget the other Frenchman's name, but it was European philosophers who were cited when the Constitution was being created. When I hate to say founding fathers, I cringe when I say it. When those folk got in that room in Pennsylvania and decided they were going to create a contract to make this great nation function, they had to reach for some type of philosophical undergirding. Like if you think of it as in terms of building a building, before you build a building you need what? A foundation. So the nation's foundation is built off of 4 or 5 philosophers. I forget if it's 5. I know it was Hobbes, Locke. Those are two main ones, basically Hobbes and Locke. Montesquieu, and I forget the other one. But anyway, Montesquieu was liberal. But the main philosopher in which the Constitution was formed and straight up plagiarized by Thomas Jefferson, they don't teach you this in school, was Locke. And Locke was what did he do for a living? Origins are important. Locke was an advisor to the South Carolina, the colony of South Carolina. He was an advisor to white men who had slaves on how to keep your slaves. And I'm paraphrasing Locke, but I read this shit with my own eyes. Locke said something like, just if you want to keep people enslaved, just tell them that they free. Tell them they have liberty. Like he was saying it like his game. Like tell them they're liberate. You have liberty. You have freedom. You have justice. Is enough justice for all people. He said, say that shit, but just don't give them justice. And that ideology found its way into our Constitution. So here we go, hundreds of years later, running around saying no justice, no peace. When the word justice, according to Locke, was just a fucking finesse. Take that. Come on, the black.
Okay, since we know that back in the day, people use aliases to work on both sides. Like Benjamin Franklin used a lot of aliases, and and since uh, Frederick Douglass was referenced in the Willie Lynch letter as an example of how to break a slave, and he came from the plantation area of John Locke. I always had the thought that John Locke was kind of like the author or the originator of it, just using an alias during that time period. Cause
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
interesting. I would believe that. Yeah, yeah, I would believe that. Go ahead. Yeah, keep this coming. I believe that. Because John Locke was a master finesser. If I had my copy, I don't know where I put my copy of Dr. Zen's book. There's a quote in Dr. Zen's book where Locke was mad in England that England passed a law that 4-year-olds couldn't work. Like England passed a child labor law or some shit that made the working age like 11. And Locke was just, oh man, he lost his shit. He was like, how dare they waste good working years of a 4-year-old? Like he was an evil fucker.
4 years. Oh, what are you doing at 4 years old?
Ah, you gonna make me find this book?
Having me chase you around because you got in the cookie jar? What are you doing?
They were working in factories and shit, and like England, I guess like enough 4-year-olds lost their arms and legs and got
What?
hell yeah, they got mangled up in machinery and stuff.
What's wrong with these people? Give a person a childhood.
Right, that England was like, you know what, we will no longer you can no longer, like they changed the working age to 11, which is still ridiculous, and
What is,
Locke lost his shit over it.
what about the fact that they were marrying 7-year-olds in Delaware and these women came out and protested and made them raise it up to 8?
Ugh,
Really?
nasty. Come on, Rob.
8?
That's what I was gonna say next. I was like, it's funny how everything is kind of coming full circle because when you think about AI, every time they have to pay or compensate a human being, they see it as some type of expense. So I can imagine if we can take ourselves back to their day. You're in the secret society. You're in the little clubhouse or whatever. What were they talking about? They were talking about the things that we're talking about right now, people. They were talking about how to maintain power.
Right,
They were talking about profits. They had all day, every day, while other people were out there laboring. They were like, how can we keep this grift going? What's working on your end? What are you telling them? How much religion do we use? How much political hope do we use? How many suckers every now and then do we get with kind of like, it's kind of like the lottery. Every now and then you got to show a winner. You know what I'm saying?
right.
For people to keep believing in it. Because I'm thinking, like, what was it that they were doing? What was it that they were promising these people so much for them to buy into a system that now they want to tear apart? You know what I mean? I find it very interesting. And it's like, so these people were spending the Twitter spaces of their day in the country clubs talking about power 24/7 while everybody else was just, it was just death and taxes.
And they all, Robbie, were in the same secret society. Fast forward a couple hundred years, um, when this country was being formed in that room in Pennsylvania, you get a bunch of men in the same group, same order, that say, you know what? Let's use Hobbes and Locke. How else would they know about them? They're in the same group. This world is controlled by a small cabal of people. And that's just the reality of it. Go ahead, Savannah.
Yeah, so I went out to look because I remember you kept saying you kept saying pursuit of happiness, but yeah, he believed in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But he was also, like you said, kind of similar to Lincoln in the sense of, okay, yeah, I believe that, slaves is this, that, and the third, but they don't have the same rights as everybody else. Waddy, whoop de woo. Um, he influenced Franklin. I don't want to pump or squash that theory there, but he died 1706, and Franklin came later on. But yes, he influenced people like Jean Jacques and Volatar, Beltry, um,
Okay.
and Karl Marx, Thomas Jefferson.
Uh-oh. You see? You
Who
see?
else?
You
John
see?
Dewey. All
There
these
we
names,
go.
Ayn Rand. So it's like at the end of the day, they are a part of the same cult.
Yep. Yep. It's world domination, Karl Marx. And it all goes, Karl Marx goes back to Luciferianism. Here we go. It's a
Isn't that the
small
reason
group.
Oh, he
why
believed in
they
limited government. Sorry, but yes, limited government.
Right.
isn't that the reason why the French Revolution started to get rid of guilds and secret societies, but they went underground anyway.
Yeah. 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 Because they start
They
taking
keep
everything
doing
over.
that. They keep doing that with the Knights Templar. They tried to get rid of them and they went underground and probably made 10 more secret societies and hid all their stuff.
Yeah, and start attacking rap music. You start infiltrating rap music. Yeah, the 48 laws of power: be shapeless, be like water, be formless, take on another shape like water. That's what these people are doing. This shit is deep. Immortal
Well,
melon. Oh, go ahead, Wani.
I was just going to say, real quick, we get a lot of mixed messages because we deal with racism, and then when you go to the Vatican, you see the Black Madonna, and in Russia too. In Spain too. I mean, actually, I see it everywhere, but I'm just bringing up the Vatican. And they talk about paganism, right? The whole thing is based on we're Christian now and we're not pagan. And then you go in there and there's nothing but pagan art. And and you're asking like why? And it's like, well, we're preserving it. So when someone asked earlier, um, what can we do? We can't do anything because the days of the week, the months, the years, everything is a pagan origin name. The planets, everything around us is pagan, and they have not changed it. I don't know whether it's because it's too hard and we're already used to that system, like they did with all the holidays. Remember, these holidays are thousands of years old. They just incarnated from other seasonal holidays. And so they can't really get rid of them because people are going to still want to celebrate them, and we're going to always call it Monday and Tuesday. And so I don't know how you can get rid of it. But like I said earlier, um, what is pagan? I mean, I don't, is it really that bad that someone is celebrating the seasons, or is it the bad part is when you're worshiping idols and demons and uh, drawing pentagrams and pentagrams and things like that. That's really what's uh, I wouldn't want to be a part of over just celebrating the seasons and naming things. And I think it's considered paganism, these dates and months and stuff like that. I don't know whether it's part of the spell, but they have not gotten rid of all the pagan associated things for whatever reasons.
Right, right. Well, I think back in the day, before, and I got to be careful of how I say this, because I'm not under any illusion that we have spies in our midst listening. Let me think how I say this. Well, there was y'all can look up um Gregorian, Gregorius. I'm sorry. The calendar used to be accurate, and for some reason, a group that Wani mentioned decided to skew everything. To skew the calendar used to be in line with with the stars, celestial alignment. Everything was in tune with the universe. We were in balance, ladies and gentlemen. But a certain group of people came along who we've been kind of insinuating on and busted up this harmony and replaced it with disharmony. Let me give you a good example of it. The calendar, right? Every month is aligned. Month has a meaning. And let me tell you something. A lot of y'all probably didn't know. The month has a numerical value. Let me ask you this: what numerical value does oct have?
Mm. We're supposed to have 8.
8, but it's a 10, right? For some reason, thank you, very smart, Savannah. For some reason, Gregarious took us out. He didn't want us in line with that 10. He put us in an 8. Why the fuck would you do that? Deck, what numerical value is DEC?
10.
Deca. Yeah, and but December is what? 12, out of alignment. November. What's that?
7.
No. b- Yeah, but
Or I lied. My bad.
9.
9.
Yeah, that's
9,
September.
sept. I may have got it wrong. No, sept is 7. Yeah, but still, yeah, September. When is that? That's 2, right? It should be a 7. Gregarious is responsible for that, and you know who Gregarious was working on behalf of? The Vatican. It all boils down to the same place, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, Robbie Blue.
As you're talking, I'm just having to remember that, when they talk about freedom and when you talk about paganism, it just makes me think of the Council of Nicaea and how they, associate paganism with absolute power. So since people saw that, these emperors were kind of like godlights because they were borrowing from Egypt and other places about, the leader being almost like a high priest and, being godlike. As a matter of fact, some of the Roman emperors were worshipped like gods, right? So people had a chance to not only aspire to be, a ruler, but to be God. So when they come talk about one nation under God, and you have people who uphold to some of this paganism, they remember a time when they could just dance around like fairies and be Caligula and be almost godlike. Like the only person that could answer to them was nature itself, right? Enough syphilis will get you in check, you know what I'm saying? Or enough whatever would just finally kill you. Like they were doing Diddy before Diddy. So when we talk about freedom and justice and equality, I think they're asking for the freedom to act on all those inhibitions. That's why somebody can say, I want the freedom to have 8-year-olds and 4-year-olds working from sunup to sundown in a factory,
Like Locke,
right?
yes.
Right. Because I'm God.
Yep.
And now they teach white folks, guess what? God practices favoritism. So that paganism from the past, that's something from the past. Now you can be a part of something different because you know what? The Catholic Church, they infused all that paganism and the cues that people needed, right, to unite the Roman citizens, right? That's what Catholicism basically was. They took some of those pagan beliefs and infused it with Christianity, and they came up with a nice cocktail that is do what I, practice what I, don't practice what you preach, just preach it, and it's worked ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. If you look at Tammy Faye and Baker from the '90s, like I don't know if y'all are too young to remember that the televangelists. My dad used to talk about them, and they end up stealing all this money. It's all a finesse. Immortal, what's on your mind?
Oh, greetings. Oh
What's up?
man, this is one of the most fantastic safe spaces that I get to talk in. Appreciate the show. So to start off with, shout out to the host and co-host. Y'all really doing it. I love these late night spaces. Y'all really, you don't know what you're doing. Maybe you do. If you do, man, it's great. It's great. It's great. Um, so reason I wanted to take a mic tonight is because of the title. Um, the title, it said, "We're calling this thankful. Did Pocahontas have Stockholm syndrome?" Both answers, my humble, very humble submission. Greetings to the family. Look, very humble submission is no to both questions. Was the columnist thankful? No. Did she have Stockholm syndrome? No. No. That our ancestor to my little brother from another mother. I got a little brother from another mother. He don't like me calling him little, so I'm gonna say younger. My younger brother from another mother. That's his ancestor. So that's why I came in here. You talking about Pocahontas? I feel obligated to take up for her, to give you my perspective. No, she was not Stockholm syndrome. She understand the situation. She understood what was facing her. She was kidnapped. Come on now, let's do the history. She was kidnapped by people, and her family was threatened. Imagine, think about how young Pocahontas was. Think about how young she was, and you come to this young person and say, "We're gonna do harm to your family if you don't," and they didn't prove to you. You so young, and they kill people in front of you. They do all type of heathenistic things. Where you at, Robbie? Was they some heathens? I believe you agree with me. Listen, they were some heathens against her. And the story went like it went. But nonetheless, did she have Stockholm syndrome? No, I don't think she had Stockholm syndrome. I think she was a hostage, just like and it goes throughout time. And people say, well, they want to talk bad about Pocahontas. Listen, um, there was another Pocahontas that came later, and she was the concubine. And that's a too nice a word for what it was, for what it really was. Concubine is too nice of a word for what it really was. She was another hostage. See, it goes throughout time. Thomas Jefferson, which was the president, I want to say Thomas Jefferson, had a baby, and and they descendants is alive and well today.
Jefferson.
Well, they're alive today.
Jefferson
You get what
is,
I'm saying?
yeah, Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Jefferson had a 14.
Okay. Okay, Pocahontas was no different from Sally Hemings. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
That's why I love these spaces. That's why I love your spaces, Professor, and wanting y'all really do bring it full circle. You really do.
I
And I can't even front.
appreciate you, Immortal. I wanted to look at a quote while Immortal was talking. I was thinking about a quote from Pocahontas's dad, Chief. How'd you say it, Wani?
Powhatan.
Powhatan, Chief Powhatan. Chief Powhatan says, "Why would you take?" He's talking to the Europeans when they were overrunning. He realized he lost Workomo, and it was becoming Jamestown. He says, "Why would you take by force what you may have quietly by love? Why would you destroy us who supply you with food? What can you get by war? We can hide our provisions and run into the woods. Then you will starve for wronging your friends. Why are you jealous of us? We are unarmed and willing to give you whatever you ask. If you come in a friendly manner and not so simple as to know what it is, this better that is better to eat good meat, sleep comfortably, live quietly with my wives and children, laugh and be merry, with the English and trade for their copper and hatchets than to run away from them and lie cold in the woods, feed on acorns, roots, and such trash, and then be hunted where I can neither eat or sleep. In these wars, my men must sit up watching if a twig break and cry out, 'Here comes Captain Smith.' So I must end my miserable life. Take away your guns and swords, the cause of all of our jealousy, or you may die in the same manner." And he was really like he really brought up a really good question. Why would you, you can have anything you want with peace. Why do you want to take it by force? It's fucking crazy. Like you can have whatever you want. That's what you're dealing with though. I think it was Ani Asaru. I could be wrong. Go ahead, Ani.
Someone else go. I'm gonna circle back.
Okay, go ahead, the black.
Uh, I don't want to say I don't want to compare like Sally Hemings to Pocahontas because those was two different eras. And then like yeah, the situation.
Two different eras, same shit. But go ahead.
Not
I'm
really
sorry.
because
I'm sorry.
they had multiple kids. And like Thomas Jefferson made laws where he could be with her,
Nigga,
like it's gonna be
I'll take
case
your
between.
women in your family and make several kids if I use the power that I have for evil. I'll take your women in your family that you love and make several kids if I use the power that I have. Just me, and I don't have a lot. I'll use it and have several kids by them.
This
And,
is this
Quick,
a
quick
tough one.
question.
and you gonna
Quick
leave
question.
and you
How
gonna
old
leave
was
the kids
Pocahontas?
land, and you gonna leave the
15.
kids land.
I heard
Okay,
she was
think
13.
about that. Come on, bro. She's a child.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Probably
saying. They're two
7.
different
The child.
situations. And like Thomas Jefferson left all his kids land. He educated them. Like he made sure her kids had a good life. Like even though the situation
She
was fucked
forced
up,
him
how
to do that. No, no, no. Don't say that. She forced him to do that.
they was in a
That
relationship.
was a she Sally Hemings forced him to do that because she went to France and she said she wasn't coming back unless there was some safeguards and precautions made for her children because there would have been none if didn't take the stand that she could take
Yeah,
as
you
a
ain't gonna hit this pussy no
enslaved
more
person.
if you don't put them kids in the wheel.
What?
You ain't gonna hit that
See,
thing
that's
no
the
more if you
oh
ain't
my
gonna put them
God.
kids in the wheel. That's basically how she did it. Like, come on, they was in a whole relationship. Like, if we gonna be real.
No, sir. There's no whole relationship when you kidnap a person and rape them and have kids by them.
So why did
Emotions
he
go
kidnap her?
run. No, stop talking about emotions. The facts
He
is
said
because
nothing about
you want to
emotions.
say how she felt at any given time. She felt a gang of different ways at any given time. She probably was happy for them children. That's why she took the risks that she took to protect them. Not that she was happy to have them by who she had them by, but she loved her own seed, her own children, and so she wanted to give them the best life. Look into Sally Hemings' life. It was a war between her and that dude. It was no romance. It was a war. It was a
He
war
was
of
sneaky.
wills, and it was a war of wits. It was a war of will and wits. But go ahead. I'm sorry for y'all, but I just whatever, man.
That's a tough one because I can see both sides of the argument. I will say they both were real young. Sally Hemings was 14. Pocahontas was at that. We don't really know how. The scholarship I had said Pocahontas was 15 when she was abducted, and
She was 14. She was 14 going on 15. She was 14 going on 15.
so roughly
Word up.
roughly they were the same age. But I can kind of see.
So what was the age you got with her and Jefferson?
Fuck. Well, the age gap between Pocahontas and what's the motherfucker's name? John. Hold
John Ross.
on. Yeah, he was almost 40. So I imagine Jefferson was older than that. Um, just
Mhm.
disgusting. So
Now I'm just saying that's why she had leverage because karma's a bitch, bro. You get where you old, and she be like, "Nigga, I remember what you did to me when I was 13." And Thomas Jefferson is in that cabin by himself, and she take one of them pins, you know what I'm saying, and stick it where the sun
Man,
don't shine, and hit him over
Jefferson was trying to
the
save. Listen, man, Jefferson was trying to save face. He had lost control. He had. Hey, listen. As far as my mind can tell me, as far as my mind can comprehend, we live in a system of white supremacy, and that system controls the planet overall in
But bro,
general.
you just thought. Listen,
Listen though, Robbie. Listen to what I'm saying to you, Robbie. But that control does not encompass all places at all times.
No, I
And you
understand what you're
understand that.
saying. I'm just taking it to a human level. Any man in here knows you're the most vulnerable when you're sick. And trust me, as I see my dad getting older, rest in peace, moms. But I'm pretty sure, like, if my dad was very sickly, let's just put it this way: there's certain siblings I don't think he would want to take care of them. Even my mom would tell me, she's like, Rob, if you don't take care of me, I don't trust your brother. You know what I mean? I hope he don't hear the recording. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to tell him at the funeral, but it gets real, bro. There's elder abuse. You feel me? And he probably deserved all the elder abuse that was gonna come his way.
yeah, very fascinating. So Stockholm syndrome. Uh, I know we said this hours ago, so some of y'all didn't catch it, so we don't get lost on what it is. According to Britannica in 2021. Stockholm syndrome is a psychological response wherein a captor begins to identify closely with his or her captors. So basically, you begin to think that the people who abducted you are your friends. You know what I'm saying? And in some cases, they will fight for them. Like if you try to arrest the captor, the captee will be like, "Don't touch him, don't hurt him." It's a real psychosis. So I don't have enough evidence to say that Pocahontas did really have Stockholm, but I posited it in my book because of the way she started dressing. But there is a possibility she had no choice of her dressing or the way she dressed.
Listen, Professor. If you, Professor, you as a good, clean, wholesome individual, you're not like this, but I'm putting it on you. If you come with 20 brigands, because that's what it's going to take, at least 20 brigands. 15, I can deal with. 20, you got me. I ain't even going to front. Listen, I might not agree, but you're gonna have me at a disadvantage, and you're gonna be able to put upon me what your will is. And I'm a grown ass man, strong man. I'm a rough man, and you could do that to me with 20 people. As far as not Stockholm syndrome means that you've they've broken. It's just like boot camp in the military. Stockholm
Right.
syndrome means that you've broken that person down to a point where now you can rebuild them in the fashion that you want to make them in.
Right. 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 I see what you're saying.
You
Interesting.
understand me? Uh, you've taken that psychology of that person and you've exerted the pressures that it takes to that person to what they call disassociate. When someone's being abused, a lot of times they'll disassociate from the whole situation, like they wasn't even there.
Right.
Huh?
That's why people go crazy, during being, sexually violated. They'll
That's
have a
right.
break.
That's
Yeah.
right. Now, there's a difference between Stockholm syndrome and a person that is looking at the situation in front of them. I've been kidnapped. Listen, let me tell y'all something. I've been kidnapped. I never developed Stockholm syndrome, but I did develop a healthy. Listen, I'm talking to you right now, so that lets you know. I developed a healthy respect for the people who had me captive. I ain't talking about no police. I ain't talking about no what y'all consider the authorities. Authorities had me captive, and I wasn't under no Stockholm syndrome. I was under the circumstances of gunpoint and the thought of life or death, and not for even myself, because they looked at me and said, "We'll do this to you." I said, "We'll do it then. We'll do it to this family member and that family member." And I began to think, how can I save them and still keep my mind? That's the position Pocahontas was in. She was never. She knew she was a hostage. She knew her daddy, her granddaddy. Go back and listen. Go back and get the scholarship of what happened to that lady. Go back and get the scholarship of what happened to the other young Black American woman who I told you who was. See, Pocahontas was the predecessor. Pocahontas, they came in, they was colonizing. Then once they had colonized, the presidents want that same. See, they go to the colonizers. Y'all, Stockholm syndrome can be avoided if you understand your captors. The
Yeah.
art of war teach you. The art of war teach you, sir, to understand your enemy. So, with that being said, I understand that Pocahontas was dealing with this. She was playing the cards she was dealt with, and that's why I got a younger brother from another mother alive and well today. She understood. They had guns. They got all this. They gonna kill my daddy. If I don't go before my daddy and say, "Don't fight," they're gonna kill him instantly.
Eh.
My daddy is cold with a arrow, but they didn't constructed guns from technology that they got from us. We wouldn't have never Black Americans and our extended family across the world. We would have never constructed guns the way that they did. We never would have done that. We didn't do that. We had gunpowder. We had all kind of shit at our disposal, but we didn't want to wreak that kind of havoc upon. We didn't want to commit what they call it, war crimes or crimes against humanity. We understood that when we go to war, we're not going to create crimes against humanity. That's not what it's about. It's about just some resources, just some land or whatever we was arguing about, and we was gonna now even the victor in conflicts among us, the victor, yeah, they give them some resources. Yeah, we won these resources, but we not crimes against humanity, so we're gonna give you some resources. They don't do it like that, and she understood that. Can you imagine the 14-year-old woman, girl, a 14-year-old girl, you know what I'm saying, coming up against the pinnacle, the what do you call it? The vanguard. What do you call it? Of the colonizing, quote unquote colonizer vanguard, and here in the precipice and standing in between her people and them was, her, and she being a child. Many of us, listen. Let me look through this. A lot of y'all was children when you came into adulthood. When you start dealing with adult shit, not sexual. Let's get out of sexual, because a lot of y'all like to keep your mind, not the co-host and co-host, but too many of us like to keep our mind on base instinct shit. What you're gonna eat, where shelter over your head, and who you're gonna have, who you're gonna copulate with. Men and women, y'all need to rise above that. That's a part of who you are, but you gotta have more than that. And she understood more than that, and they didn't. That's who had her captive. So yeah.
I get your point, immortal, and I'll consider that. I can see that side of that point. Let's go to John Horse and then Savannah, and I think we're gonna close. Go ahead, John Horse.
Oh no, you said something earlier when you were talking about like you were reading Pocahontas's what Pocahontas's dad was saying,
Uh
and
huh.
you were saying how like why didn't they just choose to come in in peace and things like that. We got to remember, I think one of the issues that we all faced on this planet that we didn't understand is that that's their culture.
Exactly.
That's they have a culture of war. And the thing is, even when you pay attention to the Nazis and when you hear what the Nazis talk about, like they believe in preserving the white genetic and superiority or whatever, they don't realize that them actually waging war the way that they're doing is actually killing them. They don't realize that it's actually going to wipe them out. They don't, you know what I'm saying? They're so power drunk and so, drunk
What
on
goes
power.
around comes around. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't realize that when you come from a culture of war, you can't preserve life. Like you can't preserve yourself. You're basically just going to, exert everything that you have into the point where, and it's already happening now. Yeah, sure, you may have, all the technological advanced weapons and all of this stuff like that, but over time, it's just you're just gonna slowly just disappear because that's all you do. You just wage war for 2,000 years. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just all it's ever been. While you have I'm not saying that every group of people on the face of the planet were these squeaky clean people, because damn sure not. But these people have a culture of war. All they know is bloodshed. So when they came to the shores of these other places and other countries, it's like why are you doing this? Well, it's like shit. This is all I know. It's really all I know. And by the time they realize that they made the wrong, there was a better way to do everything that they've always wanted to do, it's going to be too late. And it is what it is.
You
So
know
that
who
in
said
which, hold on.
yeah, who said that you're really cooking? Who said that was David Banner. David Banner said the best thing we could do is to just leave them alone because their culture is so destructive that they would sit up and destroy each other, which is what they were doing before they met us. We forget this. We're not taught this in
Yes,
school. But
yes,
go ahead. I interrupted you.
yes. And and the thing is, freedom has a different meaning. We see freedom differently than they do.
Hmm.
When we hear freedom, we don't hear the same thing that they do. You know what I'm saying? It's totally different. The thing is about freedom for them, freedom can actually be weaponized that actually can harm them, because that in which follows no law can't exist. They can't exist if you're just gonna just be this lawless thing. Even Mother Nature follows certain types of laws. You know what I'm saying? The thing is, the white supremacist feels is I'm above nature, therefore I can do whatever it is that I want. It's like, okay, nature, you can do whatever it is that you want, but there's
They
only
the
gonna
one
be.
came up with man versus nature. We never had a man versus nature, but they did. Go on, family. I just wanted to say you
Oh
true.
yeah, yeah. So it's just one of those things where you're gonna from what I'm seeing is just that it's just that they come from a culture of war. And, and that's why, I do, like the film Tariq did, the 1804, because I think that's one thing that the Haitians kind of tapped into, and they kind of realized, like, even when Wani was sitting there saying, she was talking about, the how everything has a spirit. And one thing that I remember that the lady said during the documentary, she said that when they worship voodoo and everything like that, they realized that everything has a spirit, including the white supremacists. And so they realized that in order for us to get them off of our back, we are going to have to mirror him. Everything that they do to us is like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to do it to you, and then I can guarantee you, I'm going to do it better. And then that's when everything, what I'm saying. I mean, they got him off their back, but it's just one of those things. Of course, down the line, what happened to him and everything was bad, but it's just one of the things that I just kind of realized.
Interesting.
That's a hell of a realization.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go to Robbie Blue, Savannah, and then I'm gonna go ahead and close down. I've enjoyed y'all. Go ahead, Robbie.
All I'm going to say real quick, one of our greatest flaws when it's come to dealing with them is not so much matching their dominance, but having a measured response. Like in other words, when you have time to finish them, you got to be like Bruce Lee when he stepped on O'Hara's chest. You know what I mean? He didn't sit there and say, you know what? Let me just think about taking the high road. It's like, nah, you need to crack them ribs. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. Because what they'll do is they'll get you to a standstill and say, we want to have a peace treaty. They did it with the Filipinos. They did it with the Indians in South America. They did it here with the Native American tribes. They've done it with our leaders. They'll try to say, hey, you know what, guys? We want to have a sit down. We want to talk. I'm here to learn. And they're doing that
When
as a ruse to
they
throw you
losing,
off.
when it look like they losing, go ahead.
Yeah, they do that as a, or not even so much that they're losing, just to get you off balance. Because what they want you to do is to appeal to your better nature and be like, you know what? Nobody's this savage. Like the Democrats, they'll be like, nobody's willing to go that far. It's like, duh, you better believe it. Like when people show you who they are, believe them. And I guess at the end of the day, to your point, you don't have to be a savage, but you got to recognize when you're dealing with a rabid dog. And I land my plane.
Right. Sun Tzu says, keep your intentions dark and as impenetrable as night. And when you move, fall like a lightning bolt. That's how they've been hitting us, man. But the problem is not them, it's us. Because we, like you said, Robbie, we say, no, he didn't mean it that way. Where's all this second guessing come from? Savannah, what's on your mind?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to just quickly touch on what Immortal said about Sally Hemings and her pushing for better opportunities for her kids. She passed away 2 years before the first HBCU was built in Pennsylvania, 1837. So I thought that was pretty interesting because she was a big proponent of making sure her kids had better options. But I kind of paraphrased in the space last night. James Baldwin, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious to be in a state of is to be in a state of rage almost all the time.
Yep.
So when Tariq made that comment of like, why are you upset with what we call them? It is what it is. That's what they're doing. We can't be fools to what they're doing, and we can't keep turning a blind eye and just taking the high road. We have to call it out for what it is, and I mean that's what MLK recognized before it was all said and done. I think I've led my people into a burning bush. We can't be docile. We have to meet them where they're at. But yeah, landing my plane.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good point. Good point. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all. We will continue this tomorrow. And Juana, you had any closing comments?
No, good
Good
night.
night, y'all. I appreciate y'all. I enjoyed you. I learned a lot. Peace out.